This evening, let's explore an excerpt from How to Meditate Like a Jedi, and then meditate. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is brought to you by the kind folks who support this channel on Patreon. This evening, we could chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two. But first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as profoundly as Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Good news. If at any time during this evening's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. There your question will be promptly ignored, stumbled upon, and then mocked, perhaps derided. A Duel of the Fates, a study in yin and yang. Unusual is it not to begin a Buddhist meditation manual with a discussion of Taoist philosophy. But I have not met a Buddhist Lama who did not laud the Tao Te Ching. Taoism enlarges like a great umbrella under which are huddled many disciplines. In each of these yin and yang have meaning singular and unique. Yin and yang have one set of meanings in traditional Chinese medicine and quite another in philosophy, of which Lao Tzu is the great-granddaddy. Read commentaries written by stupid white men, and they will have you believe that the mission of Lao Tzu's opus magnus is to reconcile yin and yang. In, however, the 81 poems of the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu throws a metaphoric brick through the pane glass window of that preconception. Recite 12 poems of the Tao Te Ching every evening just before bed, and you'll consume its entirety in a week. Do this for 2 years, and you'll get through it 100 times. For 20 years, and your read-throughs will exceed 1,000. I don't care how thick and slow you feel you may be. Glaze ice like Jordan knuckle dragging. Persist with 1,000 readings and you'll see patterns. You'll recognize how the author never asks you to relinquish your mindfulness, vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. But instead, time and again implores his reader to forsake the worldview of Yang and embrace that of Yin. Docidius was the poster boy of Yang. Rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, competitive, and cruel. The epitome of Yin Qui-Gon Jinn was flexible, loving, laid-back, egalitarian, cooperative, and kind. Despite the ravings of 1,000 so-called success coaches, Yang's alpha male mythos of patriarchy may lead to many places, but the mastery of peace, love, and fulfillment, no less enlightenment, or not one of them. Whoops, wrong button. Meditation teachers and the books are a dime a dozen, as plentiful as the stars of the Milky Way as seen in the desert at midnight. But one who has forsaken Yang and embraced Yin is as rare as a constellation in the midday sky. Find a teacher who is like a child of Qui-Gon Jinn, that they might help you be likewise. If you've just joined me, welcome to this evening's live stream. If at any point during this live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen, which will promptly be ignored, later stumbled upon, and then quickly mocked. The secular contemplation of mindfulness and meditation is an adaptation of the oldest and most popular of the Buddhist meditation manuals, the Anapanasati Sutta. We're going to begin with 4 contemplations. We begin the Dhamma. Let's try this again. We begin with Dhammasati or Anika Vipassanas, set to 4 impermanence contemplations to help us sustainably let go. These 4 very simple exercises are ideal the next time you feel anything from anxiety, annoyance, and sorrow to terror, rage, and despair, and all points in between. In other words, this really takes the edge off. So we're going to silently and mentally recite a concise rhetorical question. By definition, we do not strive to answer a rhetorical question. Its power lays in its question format. So what we're going to do is silently and mentally recite, during the inhalation, silently and mentally recite what? During the exhalation, silently and mentally recite now changing. And of course, the word changing is hyphenated. You'll find out why in a moment. During the inhalation, our inhalation is shorter and sharper. Our exhalation is longer and softer. We come to the second of 4 contemplations, where we consider subtle impermanence. What now fading? Whether it's physical pain or emotional pain or any type of joy you can imagine, these exercises help us to experience them without being attached to them. Often, folks who write about meditation in movies actually don't practice meditation, or if they do, they don't practice it in a fulfilling and enlightening manner. And we wind up with lines about meditation and philosophy, both in Star Trek and in Star Wars, that would make a Buddha facepalm. The problem is not having attachments. The problem is being either controlled by the attachments or liberated, not from the presence of attachments, but from their tyranny. We can feel whatever we feel, and yet still allow our choices, utterances, and deeds to be governed by centered spontaneity. That's the key. Those who write of force meditation talk about reaching out to the force. That's an awful lot like a bird reaching out to the air or a fish reaching out to the water. It's already there, within us, without us, on all points in between. If we just practice meditation, effectively, centered spontaneity, expedient means, will take care of itself. We come now to the third of 4 contemplations where we consider very subtle impermanence. What now ceasing? A young Theravadan monk used to visit me quarterly, and we'd talk. I have been studying and practicing the Buddha's teachings literally for decades, many decades, longer than he has. When we would converse, we would not always agree. And when I would try to present information, I would try to use facts and examples. His method was to repeat his point loudly. It's the "you are a hammer" and the "you are a nail, I am a hammer" stratagem. Ah, the folly of youth. What? They don't agree with you? Then repeat yourself louder. When someone does that, they're not really enthusiastic to learn, nor are they capable of processing new information. The best you can do is maintain the peace and back slowly away from the topic. Hands in the air, no sudden movements. We come to the fourth of 4 contemplations, where we consider relinquishment, yielding, or surrendering. I'm going to do a quick edit here. What now release? We continue with Kaya Sati's first set of 4 preliminary meditations to help us to center our bodies. We begin with the first of Centering's 4 physical preliminary practices, where we mentally notice and even investigate our relaxingly long, gentle exhalations. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the adjective calm. During the exhalation, we silently and mentally recite breathing long. This reminds us that whenever we experience agitation while meditating, that relatively longer exhalations can be sedating. in a sustainable manner. We come to the second of centerings for physical preliminary practices, where we mindfully notice and even investigate the coalescence of our invigoratingly sharp inhalations. As we inhale, we silently and mentally recite the adjective short. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the hyphenated verb energize. This reminds us that our shorter and sharper inhalations can be a welcome antidote to drowsiness on the meditation cushion. If at any time, good news by the way, if at any time during this evening's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen, where your question will be promptly ignored, and then stumbled upon, and then mocked. So in these last two exercises, we explored the advantages of a short inhalation and a longer exhalation. Now it's time to apply it for the remaining 10 exercises. We come to the third of Centering's 4 physical preliminary practices, where we mindfully notice and even investigate our bodies. How do we do that? During the inhalation, we silently and mentally recite the verb feel. During the exhalation, we silently and mentally recite the hyphenated object, this body. Doing so, the sensations we're going to experience would be described in Heist Yoga Tantra as very coarse bliss. Bliss, in the Buddhist sense, is any sensation that is not painful. We come to the fourth of Centering's 4 physical preliminary practices, where we allow our bodies to tranquilly relax. Tranquility is, of course, the 5th of 7 enlightenment factors. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the noun form, which serves as a monosyllabic synonym for body. During the exhalation, we silently and mentally recite the hyphenated verb relaxing. Doing so could give rise to the experience of very coarse emptiness. Emptiness is a metaphor for non-graspability. In other words, having sharply recited the noun form as we breathe in, and softly, mentally recited the word relaxing as we breathe out, our body that we just noticed could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void, as non-graspable as the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, could feel intangible to the hand. We continue with Vedanasati's first set of 4 jhana meditations that center our feelings. Previously, we explored very coarse bliss. Now we're going to take the edge off and work with coarse bliss. And then eventually subtle bliss. And then very subtle bliss. And then exceedingly subtle bliss. Now we come to the first of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the first jhana's blissful joy that flows from gently grinning with the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet out of our eyes. Grinning towards what? Towards our bodies of flesh, blood, and bone. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb grin. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the object phrase, the hyphenated object phrase, to body. We come to the second of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the second jhana's peaceful joy that again flows from gently grinning with the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes towards our thoughts. And we're using thought as an umbrella term. Towards our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. So this is radical. We're not picking and choosing. We're allowing to come up whatever comes up. Whether it's glorious, whether it's grotesque, whether it's interesting, or whether it's boring, whether it's pleasurable, or whether it's painful. Grin to these thoughts. So all there is no requirement to perform any type of mental gymnastics. If all we do is silently and mentally recite grin as we breathe in, and silently and mentally recite to these thoughts as we breathe out, as we coordinate the silent and mental recitation of these words with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation, we will make progress on the path. We will plug into subtle bliss. We come to the third of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the third jhana's contentment, or a very subtle bliss. By mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. How do we do that? Simple. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb feel. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the object phrase, the oddly worded object phrase, these here thoughts, remembering that thought is an umbrella term. We spend so much time, we squander so much time and energy, either striving to repress thoughts or transmute thoughts like they were rice paper we wanted to perform origami, that just to notice them can be a relief. Of course, it helps that we've been meditating for 45 minutes and have created some psychic momentum. Every time we breathe in, due to the workings of our sympathetic nervous system, we are wired to perceive. We come to the last exercise of this particular evening's live stream. The fourth of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the coarse emptiness of the fourth jhana's neutrality by allowing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining to tranquilly relax. So what is this neutrality? Does it mean we don't feel pain or we don't feel pleasure? No. It means we are making peace with them. So even though we might feel pain, we feel less apt to shove violently at it. And even though we feel pleasure, we feel less apt to clutch to it fiendishly, maniacally, with Renfield to a cockroach. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the umbrella term thoughts. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the hyphenated verb relaxing, remembering that every time we exhale, whether we mean to or not, we are accessing our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. We don't have to make it happen. It works better if we don't. We simply let it happen. We are simply harmonizing our will with the factory installed instructions at the bottom of our brain. If you feel that I have earned it, you could type something in the chat window or give this live stream a thumbs up. You could share it with a friend or support this channel on Patreon. Either way, in approximately 10 and 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early morning meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.